Good morning, people. Down here on the boat this morning making a little breakfast. You may hear that sizzling away in the background. Getting ready to go to work. Thought I'd drop a quick note here. Glad to see that the traffic on my little channel is recovering some. In fact, surprisingly, with just the bare number of subscribers we have now, the traffic with 75 subscribers is almost identical to what it was before we got throttled here last year with like 2,000 subscribers. So it just goes to show us like how much we were choked down. I'm making an attempt to try to stay away from material that gets me throttled. We'll see how it works today because I want to talk about SeaSteading in spite of being the person that owns the copyright on that idea. That has got me nailed in the past because I'm competing with some pretty well funded interests that want to use that terminology for means other than I would. But never mind that whole shenanigans. That idea, the sea colonialism that has been advanced by the Wired magazine crowd has proven to be rather foolishness. So maybe we can move back to talking about seasteading proper, drawing on a tradition of homesteading, which is making the ocean your home, not building independent states at sea or trying to dodge taxes or anything of that nature. Just, making it your home, your habitat. That's all I've been about all along. Let's talk about that in some practical detail. So if you had the misfortune of being a younger person, say under the age of maybe 60, and you've been born into one of these Western democracies that have been totally captured by elite interests, you'll find that most all of you have been behind the wave of, let's just say equity, meaning that practically every opportunity that would have been available to the previous generation, whether that was buying real estate or having careers or getting educations or whatever, any of these opportunities are massively more expensive than they would have been for the previous generation. And because the previous generation has all that power and influence, and they basically control the governments of all these Western democracies, the entire financial system, political system, and everything is rigged for that class. Part of the reason we have an economic crisis unfolding right now is that we have not allowed price discovery to occur in any of these asset classes because these wealthy older people own all those assets and they would lose all this stuff. And it might be catastrophic anyway. Like most of us are feeding at that trough. I mean, the fact is I build boats for wealthy older people. Nobody ever under the age of 50 darkens the door to get a new boat built. Who can afford it? The little 21 footers I build go out the door for $250,000 Canadian. That's a pretty expensive toy, right? So, but I mean, everybody who's younger knows what I'm talking about. But again, seasteading, homesteading, the fact is throughout history, individuals looked for some place to go on the frontier as a means to find autonomy and prosperity for themselves. It's just that the world has been developed by the boomer class, wealthy interests, and there's very little frontier left. And now I see kids trying to do things like, commingle in cooperative housing or live in vans or things of that nature. I was doing much the same thing with the sailboats. It's just that the boats offer advantages far beyond any of those other options, and those are things we should talk about. So practically speaking, let's say that you are a kid that's relatively healthy and robust. And let's say that you have some part-time crap job, okay? Let's say that you work 20 hours a week at $20 an hour, which is not a lot of money. But, again, there's a lot of kids in that situation. And you're basically starving to death in any of these major cities with no prospects of hope or anything. Well, the fact is, if you could somehow scrounge up some cheap boat, okay, something that is a worthy builder, something a sailboat, say, of 30 feet or less. That's where I got started. I mean, those kinds of boats, if they are in need of some repair, perhaps of a blown engine, are worth, in my neighborhood, from $0 to $2,500, let's say. Okay. That's probably your minimum cost of entry. All right. Definitely the level of comfort that you're going to have when you move aboard that boat is not going to be high. But what you're doing here is emancipating yourself. You're purchasing some freedom. Because the second that you move aboard that boat, you have given up whatever else you've been paying for rent or something of that nature. And that needs to be something that you and your pirate balance sheet count as income. So let's say, once again, so you're looking at 20 times 20 for income weekly and about the same equivalency in saved rent. Well, suddenly you've immediately doubled your income as this young person. You got a place to start. But it goes better than that. If you compare and contrast to looking at, say, the alternative and living in some van, your fuel costs are going to be minuscule compared to living in the van. Your insurance costs are going to be minuscule in comparison to living in the van. I'm sorry, but under the van, you're not going to be able to catch fish or crabs, which can be a major, major, major source of income if you've got the time to do it. It can cut your food budget and your fixed costs down dramatically. That's not something you can do while living in a van. On the other side, there is no career in van living, right? The entire marine financial ecosystem, let's say, is an industry. It is hungry for talent and individuals that have the skills that you will be forced to learn simply by adopting the lifestyle. You're not going to be wealthy enough to look after the maintenance of your own boat, so you're going to have to teach yourself how to do that. And by teaching yourself how to do that, you're suddenly going to be in possession of a trade skill that's worth anywhere between $40 to $60 an hour and is in very, very high demand anywhere in the world where there's water. Vans don't offer you this. And this is why I have always used the term, again, SeaSteading, because it's precisely what you're doing. You are carving out yourself a niche, which is not only a place to live, but a livelihood. It provides you not only home, but income and sustenance, right? Security and the rest. Like, that's a pretty extraordinary thing. Assuming one has the pluck, I guess, and the relative level of fitness and commitment to adopt to the lifestyle, because it is demanding on that score. You will be more exposed to the weather. The level of skill that you need to have will be higher than perhaps many other options. But it is a way of finding autonomy, personal security, and a future that is basically turnkey for anyone who would want to pick it up and try it. This is precisely what I've done. And without a doubt, now what I'm describing is kind of the minimum barrier to entry for someone who is of pretty moderate means. Like I say, low wage, part-time work. It's still, if you're willing to make the personal sacrifices and commit to success, completely doable, even at that level. And once you get yourself involved in that, then opportunities start to create themselves because you're investing in your own future as a mariner, as a seasteader, and it opens up a lot of doors and opportunities. I mean, we've, over the last few videos, talked in great detail about why it is that I believe it is so necessary to exit the system if you want to have personal sovereignty, quality relationships, and the rest. Of course, it's no use to talk about those things if you cannot provide a practical means by which to extricate yourself. This is the way that I know how to do it. There may be others but this is where my level of expertise lies. And I hope to talk about it in a little more detail as we go forward in the next few vids. Cheers, peeps.